If nobody speaks Japanese, we're done here. Caleb Whitmore's voice cracked like a gavel, and the room seemed to shrink around it. Above Manhattan, nearly 1,000 feet in the air, the Whitmore Tower boardroom gleamed with glass walls, marble floors, and the clean bite of lemon polish that never quite faded. 5 minutes were bleeding away on the wall display, signing in 5 o'clock, and everyone could feel the numbers falling like cold rain. Caleb stood at the head of the table in a charcoal suit that looked tailored by mathematics, jaw tight, fingers drumming once, twice, then stopping as if even the sound offended him. Across from him, Mizumi Nakamura and her team sat perfectly composed, their briefcases aligned, their expressions polite in the way that warned you not to mistake it for softness. A half-finished tray of coffee and tiny pastries sat untouched, the cream beginning to skin over, time itself turning stale. The translator's chair was empty. The headset lay coiled like a sleeping snake beside a nameplate that suddenly felt like a joke. Someone cleared their throat and immediately regretted it. Travis Cole, Caleb's sleek, smiling executive who never seemed to sweat, leaned back with an air of practiced patience, as if failure was simply an acceptable outcome for other people. The company lawyer, Sarah Klein, flicked her eyes from the contract to the empty chair to Caleb's hands, searching for a crack in the moment where she could wedge a solution. But the room had no cracks, just polished surfaces and expectations. Near the far wall, half hidden beside a service alcove, Elena Hayes stood with a housekeeping cart, a microfiber cloth folded into perfect quarters in her palm. At 17, she wore the plain gray uniform like a costume she was told to keep on, the kind that made you invisible if you did your job right. Her mother, Monica Hayes, was somewhere down the hall finishing a final sweep of the corridor, and Elena could still hear her warning from earlier. Stay quiet. Stay small. Don't give them a reason. Elena tried. She kept her gaze low, counted breaths, listened to the quiet hum of air conditioning pushing money-scented air through vents. But then Ms. Nakamura spoke, softly, quickly, to a colleague, and Elena caught the words as clearly as if they'd been said into her ear. Not numbers. Not price. Something else. A phrase about penalties. A clause. A consequence. Caleb's impatience flared into the kind of anger that didn't shout at first, just sharpened. We flew them in. We blocked the time. We have press waiting downstairs, he said, each sentence clipped, controlled, and dangerous in its restraint. And we don't even have someone who can understand the room. Travis gave a small shrug, a gesture that pretended to be practical. Maybe it's a sign, he murmured. We can reschedule. Or walk. Sometimes you cut losses. Elena felt those words land like a weight on her mother's paycheck, on their rent, on the quiet promises Monica made every month with a tired smile. Her fingertips went numb around the cloth. She could stay invisible and watch the deal collapse. Or she could step into a world that had never asked her name. Caleb turned toward the delegation again, voice rising just enough to scrape. We're wasting everyone's time, he said, forcing a smile that wasn't a smile at all. Ms. Nakamura replied calmly, and the words flowed past the table like water no one could catch. Sarah Klein's pen froze above the signature line. The countdown hit 4:12. Elena heard her own heartbeat louder than the air vents. She took one step forward, then another, the cart wheels whispering against marble. Heads turned, startled by movement from the edges. Travis's smile twitched. Caleb's eyes narrowed as if he couldn't place why the room had suddenly changed. Elena stopped beside the empty translator's chair, swallowed once, and let her voice out before fear could steal it back. Suma Mason, she said, clear and steady. Watashi ga tsuyuku shimasu. Please. I can translate. For a heartbeat, nobody moved, as if the building itself had to decide whether a voice like Elena Hayes's was allowed inside this room. The Whitmore Tower boardroom was designed for certainty. A 20-foot walnut table polished to a mirror sheen, chairs wrapped in black leather, a skyline view that made the city look like a model set built for men who never lost. The air carried that crisp scent of lemon polish and expensive coffee, and beneath it, the sharper note of tension that no cleaning product could erase. Caleb Whitmore stood rigid at the head of the table, shoulders squared, eyes hard, the kind of billionaire who looked like he belonged in headlines and courtrooms, not in moments where the plan slipped out of his hands. The countdown on the wall display did not care who he was. It flipped to 4:07, then 4:06, each second as loud as a door closing. Across from him, Miss Yumi Nakamura watched Elena with a stillness that felt like a test. Her team sat in a line of calm suits, hands folded, expressions polite, yet guarded, as if they had learned long ago that respect is also a weapon. On Caleb's side, the company lawyer, Sarah Klein, held her pen above the signature line and did not blink, because lawyers learn to read rooms the way sailors read weather. Travis Cole, smooth as glass, tilted his head and smiled in a way that suggested this was entertainment. Elena could feel every pair of eyes land on her gray uniform, on the housekeeping card, on the microfiber cloth still folded in her palm like a small white flag. She did not step closer to the table. She did not touch the headset. She simply stood by the empty translator's chair and held her posture like a promise. Monica Hayes had raised her to be careful, to keep her head down, to survive a world that measured people by their job titles and the shine of their shoes. Monica had cleaned these floors at dawn, when the city was still yawning, and she had taught Elena how to move quietly, how to leave a room better than she found it, and how to never give anyone an excuse to look down on them. But Elena had also learned something else, in the margins of that quiet life. She had learned to listen. She had learned that language can be a key that opens doors no one meant for you. Caleb's eyes narrowed, then flicked to Sarah, then to Travis, as if searching for the punchline. "You," he said, the word heavy with disbelief. Not cruelty yet, but close. Elena kept her voice steady. "Yes, sir. I can translate accurately." Travis let out a soft laugh, the kind that tries to turn doubt into truth. "This is not a school project," he murmured. Sarah did not laugh. Sarah's gaze sharpened, practical and hungry for any lifeline. Miss Nakamura spoke again, quietly, to her colleague, and Elena understood every syllable, including the part that mattered most, the part no one else was hearing. They were not threatening to walk away over price. They were bracing for blame over a penalty clause, a trap disguised as formality. Elena felt the room teeter on the edge of a costly misunderstanding. Caleb's jaw flexed once. "Prove it," he said. Elena turned toward Miss Nakamura, drew a calm breath, and answered in fluent, respectful Japanese, choosing the exact level of formality that business demanded, and the air in the room changed. Elena did not raise her chin like she was trying to be someone else. She simply spoke, and the syllables came out clean, formal, and measured, like a door opening without a squeak. Miss Nakamura's eyes widened a fraction, the kind of surprise that people in power try to hide, and then her expression softened into something rarer than approval, recognition. Elena kept her tone respectful, using the kind of careful honorifics that told the delegation, "I see you. I understand the rules you brought into this room, and I will not embarrass you by breaking them." The marble and glass around her suddenly felt less like a cage and more like a stage, and she hated that she noticed it. The countdown glowed behind Caleb Whitmore's shoulder, 3:58, 3:57, each second a reminder that miracles are usually not scheduled. Caleb's stare locked onto her, scanning her face like he was searching for proof of a prank. "What did you just say?" he asked, slower now, as if speed had failed him. Elena did not look away. "I apologized for the confusion," she answered in English, then turned back to Miss Nakamura and continued in Japanese, clarifying that the company respected their time and wanted to address the misunderstanding immediately. Sarah Klein's pen lowered to the paper without touching it, her attention now fully on Elena, as if the contract had become secondary to the unexpected human key standing beside the empty translator's chair. Travis Cole's smile held for one more beat, then thinned, his eyes flicking to the delegation like he was recalculating odds. Elena could feel the weight of her uniform, the plainness of it, the way the fabric seemed to announce her place in the building, and she remembered how her mother had pressed it that morning with a careful hand. Monica Hayes did not have luxury, but she had pride. Elena had learned Japanese the same way she learned everything else, quietly, late, and with no one cheering. A public library, too. Miles from their apartment had a language aisle that smelled like paper and old air conditioning. After school, Elena would sit under a flickering fluorescent light with a battered workbook and a pair of headphones that only worked if you held the cord just right. She copied characters onto scrap paper, practiced polite greetings in a whisper, and rewound the same audio tracks until the cadence lived in her bones. Sometimes Monica would be waiting when Elena got home, tired but smiling, asking about homework like it was a doorway out. Elena never told her mother she was learning a language no one around them spoke. It felt like a secret candle, and she did not want anyone to blow it out. In the boardroom, Miss Nakamura responded in a longer sentence, and Elena caught the careful edge beneath the politeness. Elena translated smoothly, choosing words that honored both sides. She says the concern is not about the headline numbers, Elena told Caleb, keeping her voice steady. It is about responsibility if delivery is delayed. They want clarity on penalties. Caleb's brows pulled together, anger fading into sharp focus. Penalties, he repeated, like the word tasted wrong. Travis shifted in his chair, just slightly, but Elena saw it. Sarah's gaze snapped to the Japanese pages of the contract. The delegation watched Elena now, not as staff, but as the bridge they did not expect. Elena swallowed, feeling every risk in her throat, and still she continued, because the room was finally listening, and what followed was going to change everything. The room did not laugh anymore, but it did something colder. It watched. It waited. It waited for Elena Hayes to stumble, so it could pretend she had never belonged in their line of sight. Caleb Whitmore's anger had not disappeared. It had simply changed shape, tightening into a focus that made the air feel thinner. The wall display kept counting down, 341, 340, the numbers glowing like an ultimatum. Sarah Klein slid a thick binder across the table toward Elena without a word, as if she had decided that pride was optional, but survival was not. Can you tell us exactly what they are asking for? Caleb said, slower now, and Elena heard the warning under the control. Elena nodded once, then turned back to Miss Yumi Nakamura and listened as the executive spoke with careful courtesy, her tone polite enough to pass in any room, but edged enough to cut through a contract. Elena translated in a voice that stayed level even when her pulse did not. She is saying they cannot sign without confirming the risk allocation for delays, Elena said. She is also saying their legal team sees language that is different from what was discussed in preliminary drafts. Sarah's eyes snapped to the paperwork. Different how? She asked. Elena reached for the Japanese copy, and the paper felt heavier than its weight, like it carried a second story between the lines. She scanned quickly, not like a student reciting, but like someone searching for a missing stair. Her fingertip stopped on a sentence that looked harmless if you could not hear what it meant. She read it again, then a third time, slower, letting the characters settle into certainty. Her stomach tightened. This section, Elena said, and she kept her finger on the page so her voice did not have to fight alone. This says that if there is any delay, even due to circumstances beyond your control, there is an additional penalty assessed per week, and it can be enforced at their discretion. Caleb's eyes sharpened. That is not in our version, Sarah said, already flipping to the English pages, lips moving as she searched. Travis Cole leaned forward with a smooth smile that tried to reclaim the room. We are drifting, he said. This is why we pay professionals. This is not her lane. He did not have to point at Elena's uniform. It pointed at her for him. Elena felt heat rush to her face, not from shame, but from the old familiar sting of being placed back in the corner like a mop bucket. She thought of Monica Hayes pressing that uniform with careful hands, telling her to stay small, because small people get stepped on less. Elena forced her breath to slow. She turned to Miss Nakamura and asked a clarifying question in Japanese, respectful, precise, the kind that did not accuse but did not surrender. Miss Nakamura answered, and her reply confirmed what Elena feared. Their team believed this clause had been agreed upon because it appeared in the final Japanese draft they received. Elena translated, then looked back at Caleb. They think you accepted this, Elena said. They think it is standard protection because delivery timing affects their distribution. Sarah's pen finally touched the paper, not to sign, but to underline. Caleb's gaze cut to Travis. Who handled the final bilingual draft? Caleb asked. Travis's smile held, but his eyes flicked toward the door, toward escape, toward any exit that was not truth. The countdown hit 3:05. Elena felt the room tilt again, and she realized the deal was not only in danger. It had been steered there. Travis Cole met Caleb Whitmore's question with the kind of calm that only shows up when a person believes the rules will always protect him. Our team handled it, Travis said, voice smooth as the tabletop. We use the same process we always use. If there is a discrepancy, it is probably a formatting issue. These bilingual documents are notoriously messy. The way he said messy made it sound like the blame belonged to the language itself, not to any human hands. Sarah Klein's eyes stayed on the page. Bilingual documents are not messy, she said, quiet and flat. People make them messy. Caleb did not blink. I asked who handled the final draft, he repeated, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop by 10 degrees. Travis's smile tightened. I supervised, he admitted, then lifted a palm as if offering comfort. But there were vendors, assistants, a whole chain. We are wasting time on a scavenger hunt when we should be saving the relationship. He turned slightly toward Elena Hayes, just enough to make her feel the spotlight. And we should be careful about relying on unexpected participants. No offense. No offense, he said, while every ounce of offense dripped from the pause. Elena felt her throat go dry, but she kept her posture. She could hear her mother's voice in her head, gentle and tired. Keep your dignity. That is the one thing they cannot take unless you hand it over. Caleb's gaze flicked to Elena, then to the Japanese delegation, then back to Sarah. Is she translating correctly? He asked. Miss Yumi Nakamura answered in Japanese, her tone even, her words deliberate. Elena translated without hesitation. She says my translation is accurate, Elena said, then added the nuance, because honesty was the only bridge that could hold weight. She also says the way we handle this next will show whether we are trustworthy partners. Travis let out a small chuckle, as if trust was a cute concept. Trust, he echoed. This is business. Then his eyes sharpened with something that looked like concern but felt like a trap. Caleb, with all due respect, there is another issue. Confidentiality. This is a restricted meeting. How exactly does a housekeeping employee's daughter have access to legal language like this? How do we know she did not see something she should not have seen? How do we know this is not part of the problem? The words hit Elena like cold water, not painful, but shocking in how quickly the room could turn on someone small. Sarah's jaw tightened. Caleb's expression did not change, but his hands went still. Elena's pulse thudded in her ears, loud enough to drown out the air vents. She wanted to say, I learned it the hard way, the quiet way, the way people learn when nobody offers them a seat at the table. Instead she said, I am here because you asked me to prove it, sir. She kept her voice steady, but her fingers curled around the cloth in her pocket, a reflex, like holding on to home. The door opened softly and Monica Hayes stepped in, holding a small caddy of supplies, eyes lowering the instant she realized where her daughter was standing. Monica froze, then tried to retreat like a shadow. Travis saw her and pounced with polite cruelty. Monica, he said, smiling as if he knew her. Did you authorize this? Did you allow your daughter to enter a boardroom during a live negotiation? Monica's face drained of color. No, sir, she whispered. I did not. I am sorry. I will take her out right now. Elena turned toward her mother, heart twisting, because Monica did not sound guilty, she sounded afraid. Caleb's eyes cut to the countdown. 2 minutes and 20 seconds. Miss Nakamura spoke again, a brief sentence that carried disappointment like a silk ribbon pulled tight. Elena translated, and each word tasted like iron. She says she hopes we do not confuse class with competence, Elena said. And as Sarah Klein flipped the Japanese pages one more time, a small footer line caught Elena's eye, printed faintly near the margin like someone assumed nobody would read that closely. Cole_final for Japanese and for V3. Elena's eyes stayed on that faint footer line as if the ink had suddenly turned into a flare. Cole_final_Japanese_V3. It sat there, small and smug, near the margin, where most people never looked, like a fingerprint left by someone confident no one in the room could read the room. Monica Hayes took one step forward, panic tightening her face, and reached for Elena's sleeve as if she could pull her daughter back into invisibility. Elena, please, Monica whispered, voice breaking on the last word. Travis Cole lifted his chin, pleased with the fear. This is exactly what I mean, he said, smooth as ever. This is becoming inappropriate. We can continue the meeting without distractions. Caleb Whitmore did not move, but his attention snapped to Elena the way a spotlight snaps to the only honest thing on stage. What is it? He asked. Elena held up the page, Careful not to crumple it. Careful not to look like she was touching money she did not own. There is a file label printed here, she said. It says Cole_final_Japanese_V3. Travis's smile did not vanish, but it changed. It became thinner, sharper, the smile of a person who suddenly remembers the cameras might be on. That proves nothing, he said quickly. Files get named by assistants all the time. Vendors auto-generate labels. This is noise. Sarah Klein leaned forward, eyes narrowing. A footer label does not print itself, she said, and it does not appear by accident in a finalized bilingual draft. Miss Yumi Nakamura spoke, calm and clipped, and Elena translated with the same steady respect, even though her heart was trying to climb out of her chest. She says their legal team received this Japanese draft as the final version, Elena said. She says it arrived with a matching label in the email attachment name. Travis made a soft scoffing sound, a performance of disbelief. Emails can be spoofed, he said, then waved a hand toward the countdown, as if time itself was on his side. The wall display glowed 2:06, then 2:05. We are minutes from signing. We should focus on solutions, not finger-pointing. Caleb's gaze shifted to the screen, then back to Travis. The anger in his face was quiet now, the kind of anger that does not shout because it does not need to. Solutions, Caleb repeated. Yes, here's one. We stop pretending this happened on its own. He turned to Sarah. Pull the version history. Right now. Sarah reached for her laptop, fingers moving fast, eyes cold. Travis's voice tightened. Caleb, you are? Overreacting. This is a partnership. We can negotiate wording later. We do not need to derail the whole deal because a teenager is playing detective. Elena flinched at the word teenager, not because it was wrong, but because it was used like a cage. Monica's hand trembled on Elena's sleeve. Sir, I am sorry, Monica said to Caleb, already pleading as if guilt was the only language she was allowed to speak. She did not mean. Elena gently covered her mother's hand with her own, grounding her. Mom, please, Elena whispered without looking away. Just stand with me. Miss Nakamura spoke again, and Elena heard something in her tone that was not cruelty, but a boundary being drawn. Elena translated. She says they will not sign any agreement while there is confusion about which draft is authentic, Elena said. She says clarity is respect. Sarah's screen pinged. She looked up, eyes sharp as a paper cut. Caleb, she said, our internal log shows a late upload at 1:37 this morning. The Japanese file name includes Cole and version 3. The room went so still that even the air conditioning seemed to pause. Travis's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again with a smile that did not reach his eyes. Caleb leaned forward, voice low and deadly calm. Travis, he said, tell me why your name is on the version that could cost us hundreds of millions of dollars. Travis Cole held Caleb Whitmore's gaze for a beat too long, and in that sliver of time Elena Hayes saw the first real crack in him, not fear exactly, but annoyance that the script was no longer obeying him. The boardroom lights reflected off the walnut table and turned every face into a sharper version of itself, and the countdown on the wall kept pressing forward, 1:58, 1:57, as if time wanted an answer more than anyone did. Travis let out a controlled breath and smiled again, that polished, practiced smile that usually ended questions before they began. Caleb, you know how these deals work, he said, voice warm with familiarity. Files get revised late. Versions get labeled by whoever is awake at 1 in the morning. My name being in a label does not mean I changed substance. It means I managed the workflow. Sarah Klein did not look up from her laptop. Workflow does not add a penalty clause. That shifts risk unilaterally, she said. Workflow does not override negotiated terms. Caleb's eyes stayed on Travis, unblinking, as if he had decided blinking was a luxury for people who were not being lied to. Then explain the upload at 1:37, Caleb said. Explain why the Japanese version is not aligned with our English version. Explain why our partners believe we agreed to something we did not. Miss Yumi Nakamura watched the exchange with quiet composure, but Elena could feel the disappointment behind her stillness, the kind that says, we came here to build, not to be played. Elena translated the tension in the room as carefully as she translated language, choosing words that kept the bridge intact. Travis's smile thinned. He turned his head slightly, as if remembering Elena and Monica Hayes were present, and his tone softened into something that sounded reasonable but landed like a shove. "We should also address how this information surfaced," he said. "A minor, in a housekeeping uniform, is reading our legal drafts and pointing fingers. That is a security issue. That is a governance issue." Monica's hand tightened on the caddy she carried, knuckles pale. "Sir, I swear," Monica began, voice small. "I did not." Elena stepped closer to her mother, not touching her, just standing beside her like a wall made of breath and resolve. "I did not access anything," Elena said, eyes steady. "The document was placed in front of me. I read what was printed." Travis lifted a palm, gentle, patronizing. "I am not saying you intended harm," he said, "but good intentions do not replace proper process." Sarah finally looked up, her expression flat and precise. "Intentions aside, the audit trail exists," she said. "The upload was performed using Travis Cole's credentials. The system logged the device. The file was then sent externally as an attachment." Travis's smile faltered, then returned, brighter, too bright. "Credentials get shared," he said quickly. "People borrow laptops. An assistant could have used my login. Do not make this personal." Caleb's voice dropped, calm in a way that pulled the room tighter. "You made it personal when you tried to blame a 17-year-old for reading," he said. Then he looked at Elena, not with softness, but with a clear, startling respect for competence. "Elena," he said, "ask Ms. Nakamura to forward the email they received. Ask for the attachment metadata and the sender line." Elena turned to the delegation and spoke in Japanese with careful politeness, explaining the request without sounding accusatory, because saving dignity was part of saving the deal. Ms. Nakamura nodded once, and her assistant opened a laptop with quiet efficiency. Sarah's inbox pinged almost immediately. She clicked, scanned, and her eyebrows lifted by a fraction. "Caleb," she said, "the sender display name matches our internal template, but the underlying address is not ours. Someone routed it." Travis's eyes flicked to the door again. The countdown hit 1:21. Caleb leaned forward, voice steady and final. "Travis," he said, "hand Sarah your phone. Right now." For a second, Travis Cole did not move, as if his body believed refusal could still be negotiated. The walnut table reflected his face back at him, polished and unforgiving, and the wall display kept counting down, 120, 119, the numbers making even silence feel loud. "Caleb," Travis said carefully, "that is excessive. My phone is personal." Caleb Whitmore leaned in just slightly, not raising his voice, not giving an inch of drama to hide behind. "You are in my boardroom," he said, "during my negotiation, on my company's time. Hand it over." Sarah Klein held out her hand without looking emotional about it, because in her world facts were more powerful than feelings. Travis laughed once, a thin sound, then reached into his pocket and placed the phone on the table like a gambler laying down a bad card. Elena Hayes felt Monica Hayes's breath catch beside her. Monica looked like she wanted to vanish through the glass wall, like she was already rehearsing the apology she would be forced to make after this was over. Elena stayed still, but her mind raced, tracking the delegation's expressions, the shifting energy, the way Miss Yumi Nakamura's patience was being measured in seconds. Sarah tapped the screen, requested access, and Travis hesitated just long enough for Caleb to notice. "Unlock it," Caleb said. Travis's fingers moved, too quick, too practiced, and the phone opened. Sarah's eyes flicked through messages, then email, then settings, moving with the speed of someone who had done this in courtrooms and conference rooms alike. "There," she said, and her voice changed, sharpened by certainty. "Forwarding rule." Caleb's gaze narrowed. "Read it," he said. Sarah read aloud without embellishment. "All outbound drafts labeled Nakamura or Japanese copy are automatically sent to an external address, and a second rule deletes the sent confirmation." Travis's mouth opened. "That is not what that means," he said, but the words sounded hollow even to him. Sarah turned the screen toward Caleb just enough for the truth to sit in the light. Then she clicked into a folder labeled Drafts and pulled up a message time-stamped at 1:36 in the morning. Attached, the Japanese file. Sender display name, Whitmore Legal. Underlying address. An imitation that looked real if you did not stare. "This was composed from your device," Sarah said. Travis's smile returned, bigger, too bright. the smile of a man trying to wallpaper over a crack with gold paint. You are reading it wrong, he insisted. Someone could have accessed my phone. Assistants do. Contractors do. This is why we have security. Caleb's eyes did not leave him. Then you will not mind if we verify, Caleb said, and he nodded once toward the conference room camera in the corner. Security, patch and device access logs. Travis's throat moved as he swallowed. Elena turned to Miss Nakamura and spoke in Japanese with the same careful respect she had used from the start, asking for a brief pause while Whitmore corrected an internal discrepancy, apologizing for the disruption without making it her delegation's burden. Miss Nakamura listened, then answered with controlled firmness. Elena translated. She says they can wait 1 minute, Elena said. And after that, they will leave if there is no clear path to an authentic draft. The countdown hit 0:58. Monica's eyes widened in panic. Travis leaned forward, voice soft, urgent, aimed at Caleb as if intimacy could erase evidence. Caleb, do not do this in front of them, he pleaded. We can fix this quietly. Caleb's expression finally shifted, not into anger, but into disappointment, so heavy it looked like gravity. You already did it in front of them, Caleb said. You tried to use them. Sarah tapped again. There is more, she said. A calendar invite. Scheduled sent. 2 minutes before this meeting. Caleb's gaze lifted to the wall display as it rolled to 0:41, and Elena realized the next thing that happened would decide whether trust was rebuilt or shattered. The countdown reached 0:41, and for the first time all morning Caleb Whitmore stopped chasing the clock and started commanding the room. He looked at Miss Yumi Nakamura with a steadiness that did not beg and did not threaten, and he nodded once at Elena Hayes. Translate exactly what I say, he told her, then faced the delegation. We respect your time, he began, voice controlled, and we respect your company. A document sent to you was not our authentic final draft. It was altered through internal misconduct. We are correcting it now, in front of you, with full transparency. Elena rendered his words into formal Japanese with careful honorifics, choosing phrasing that protected everyone's dignity while refusing to hide the truth. Miss Nakamura listened, eyes unwavering, and replied in a calm stream that carried both disappointment and opportunity. Elena translated. She says transparency matters, Elena said. She also says trust is rebuilt by action, not speeches. She will consider signing today only if the authentic bilingual draft matches the negotiated terms and is confirmed by your counsel immediately. Sarah Klein was already moving, laptop open, fingers flying with the cold speed of competence. I can generate a clean bilingual set from our verified English master, she said. But we need confirmation of Japanese legal phrasing. Caleb's eyes flicked to Elena. Can you support that? He asked. Travis Cole leaned forward, voice tight. This is insane, he insisted. You are letting a teenager rewrite legal language. You are humiliating me in front of partners. Caleb did not raise his voice. He looked at Travis the way you look at a door you have decided to close. Travis, step outside, he said. Now. Travis blinked, stunned. Caleb, now. Caleb repeated, and the word left no room for performance. A security staff member appeared at the door, not rushing, not forceful, simply present, and Travis rose with a stiff smile that could not survive the moment. This is a mistake, he muttered as he walked out, and the door clicked shut with the soft finality of a verdict. Monica Hayes exhaled shakily beside Elena, as if she had been holding her breath for years. The countdown hit 0:23, and Sarah pushed her laptop toward Elena, showing 2 columns, English on the left, Japanese on the right, with the disputed section highlighted. Elena's eyes scanned the characters, then she looked to Miss Nakamura and spoke in Japanese with respectful precision, proposing language that matched standard force majeure protections, clarifying delivery obligations without punishing either side for events beyond control. Miss Nakamura's expression shifted, not into warmth, but into something practical, willingness. She responded, and Elena translated with calm certainty. She agrees to remove the discretionary weekly penalty, Elena said, if we include a mutual notice requirement and a reasonable cure period. Sarah nodded, already editing. Caleb leaned closer, voice low. Do it, he said. The wall display flashed 0:10, then 0:09, and Sarah hit print, then secure send, routing the authenticated draft through their official legal address in real time. Miss Nakamura's assistant checked the sender line, the attachment name, the metadata, and then nodded once. Elena felt the room breathe again, like a pressure seal releasing. Miss Nakamura spoke a final sentence, quiet but decisive, and Elena translated it as the pen returned to the signature line. She says, "Let us sign what we actually agreed to, and let today be the day integrity proved itself." The moment the signatures landed, the room did not erupt into celebration. It exhaled like someone stepping back from the edge of a rooftop. The pens moved in a quiet, synchronized rhythm, and the soft scratch of ink on paper sounded louder than any applause. Miss Yumi Nakamura checked the final page with a calm that felt earned, then set her pen down with both hands, a gesture as deliberate as a handshake. Elena Hayes translated the final confirmations, the small formal phrases that closed a deal and opened a future, and for the first time since she stepped forward, she felt the air stop pushing back against her. Caleb Whitmore sat still for a beat, eyes on the signed documents, as if he had to relearn what relief felt like. Then he looked up, not at the table, not at the skyline, but at the people in the room who had watched a teenager in a gray uniform do what they could not. Sarah Klein gathered the pages into a neat stack and slid them into a folder, her expression unchanged, but her eyes briefly flicked to Elena with a silent acknowledgement that said, "Competence is competence, no matter where it stands." Miss Nakamura spoke again, quietly, and Elena translated. "She says she appreciates the transparency," Elena said. "She says today could have ended with a broken relationship, but it did not. She says your company will be judged by what you do next, inside your own walls." Caleb nodded once, absorbing it like a vow. He turned his head toward the door and spoke without raising his voice. "Security, please escort Travis Cole to Human Resources," he said, "and deactivate his access immediately. Badge, email, systems, everything. Effective now." There was no anger in his tone, only finality. The door opened, and Travis reappeared with a stiff smile that tried to pretend he was still in control of his own story. "Caleb, this is overkill," Travis said, voice too smooth for a room that had already seen behind the curtain. "You are letting a misunderstanding turn into a witch hunt." Caleb did not stand. He did not shout. He simply met Travis's eyes. "It is not a misunderstanding when the audit trail has your name on it," he said. "It is not a witch hunt when the evidence is on your phone and in our logs. You tried to manipulate our partners, and you tried to blame a young woman for noticing. That ends today." Travis's smile faltered, and for a split second his face showed something small and real, the fear of a man who built his power on the assumption that nobody would ever look closely. "You are making a mistake," he said again, softer now. Caleb did not respond to the plea. Two security staff members stood calmly at the side, giving Travis the dignity of an orderly exit, and Travis walked out with his shoulders rigid, as if posture could replace truth. Monica Hayes stood frozen near the wall, still holding her cleaning caddy, eyes wide with the kind of fear that comes from a lifetime of being one accusation away from losing everything. Caleb's gaze shifted to her, and his tone changed, not into softness, but into something steadier and rarer, fairness. "Monica Hayes," he said, "you are not in trouble. You did not do anything wrong. Nobody in this room will punish you for your daughter's integrity." Monica's lips parted, but no words came, because relief can be heavier than panic when you have carried panic for too long. Caleb turned to Elena, and the whole boardroom felt like it leaned in. "Elena," he said, "you saved this deal. You saved us from signing away millions. And you did it with respect. Thank you." Elena swallowed, fingers finally loosening around the cloth in her pocket. She glanced at her mother, then back at Caleb, and spoke with quiet clarity. "I just read what was there," she said, "and I said what was true." After the delegation left, the boardroom felt oddly quieter, like the city outside had lowered its volume out of respect. The skyline still glittered beyond the glass walls, but now it looked less like a trophy and more like a reminder that real lives existed down there, lives that did not come with boardroom chairs or signature pens. Sarah Klein closed her laptop with a soft click and gathered the remaining folders, her movements efficient, almost gentle in their orderliness. "I will draft an internal incident report and recommend a full compliance audit," she said, tone calm. as if saving the company from a quiet sabotage was simply another item on the agenda. Caleb Whitmore nodded once, then stayed seated, elbows resting lightly on the table, gaze lowered to the place where Elena Hayes had been standing. "Elena," he said, voice measured, "how did you learn Japanese?" Elena hesitated. Nobody had ever asked her that like it mattered. She glanced at her mother. Monica Hayes looked like she wanted to speak, and also like she feared speaking, because in her world questions from powerful people were rarely invitations. Elena answered anyway, softly. "From the public library," she said. "Books, audio lessons, and practice. I listened a lot." Caleb's eyes lifted. "Why?" he asked. Elena swallowed. "Because it was beautiful," she said. "And because I wanted to prove to myself that I could learn something hard, even if nobody expected it." Monica's breath caught, and Elena felt the old ache in her chest, the ache of knowing her mother had been carrying both hope and fear for years like two heavy grocery bags in one hand. Caleb leaned back, studying them with a seriousness that did not feel like judgment. "Monica," he said, and Monica flinched at her name being spoken in this room. "How long have you worked here?" 7 years, sir," Monica replied quickly, eyes down. "I come in early. I do what I am told. I try not to cause problems." Caleb's jaw tightened at that last sentence. "You have been treated like a problem for existing," he said, not unkindly, just plainly. He looked at Elena again. "When you stepped forward today, you took a risk," he said. "Not just to your pride, to your mother's job, to your home." Elena nodded. "Because pretending otherwise would be dishonest." "Yes, sir," she said. "But letting the deal fall apart did not feel right. And letting my mother be blamed for something she did not do felt worse." For a moment, Caleb did not speak. The silence was not uncomfortable. It was the kind of silence that happens when someone is deciding to change a habit. Then he stood, walked around the table, and stopped at a respectful distance from Monica and Elena, as if he understood space can be a form of respect. "You are not being punished for today," he said. "Either of you." Monica's eyes lifted, glossy with disbelief. "Sir, Caleb raised a hand gently, not to silence her, but to stop the apology before it could become a reflex again. "No," he said. "Do not apologize for your daughter's competence. I should apologize for a culture that made you think you had to." Sarah Klein watched with a neutral face, but her gaze softened by a degree, the smallest shift that meant she agreed. Caleb turned back toward his chair, then looked at Elena once more. "If you are willing," he said, "I want you to meet with our international team. Not as a favor, as a paid consulting role, part-time, and I want to speak with you about scholarships." Elena's heart lurched, not into excitement yet, but into disbelief, because offers like that did not happen to girls in gray uniforms. Monica's hand rose to cover her mouth, and for the first time all day she did not look like she was bracing for impact. She looked like she was seeing daylight. Elena Hayes did not answer Caleb Whitmore's offer right away, because when you grow up measuring every dollar and every risk, good news can feel like a trick until it proves itself. She looked at her mother first, and Monica Hayes looked back with wet eyes and a face caught between gratitude and fear, as if joy might get them in trouble. "Sir," Monica began, voice trembling, "she is a good girl. She will work hard. But we cannot afford mistakes." Caleb's expression softened, not into pity, but into understanding. "Then let us take the fear out of it," he said. He gestured to Sarah Klein. "Sarah, draft something clear. A part-time consulting agreement for Elena. Fair hourly pay. No vague promises. And for Monica, I want a new employment contract, effective immediately. Full benefits. Predictable schedule. Paid time off. And a wage that reflects the fact that this building runs because people like her show up." Monica's knees seemed to weaken, and she steadied herself by tightening her grip on the caddy. "Sir, I do not need." Caleb cut gently through the reflex. "You do need it," he said. "Everyone does. You have earned it." Sarah nodded, already typing, her face professional, but her eyes no longer indifferent. Elena felt her chest squeeze, because she could hear the word earned and think of all the mornings her mother left before sunrise, of the way Monica's hands smelled like soap and lemon even at dinner, of the quiet ache she never complained about. Caleb pulled out his phone and made a call. "Human resources," he said. "I want Monica Hayes moved under facilities as a supervisor in training. Start the paperwork. And schedule a meeting with compliance. Today." He ended the call and looked at Elena again. Now, he said, about school. Where are you applying? Elena hesitated, then admitted the truth. Community college first, she said. I was going to work evenings. Maybe transfer later. Caleb nodded as if he had heard a plan and was already improving it. You will still have choices, he said. But you will not have to choose between tuition and groceries. Monica's eyes squeezed shut for a second, like she was trying not to cry in a room that had never allowed her tears. Elena spoke quietly. Why are you doing this? She asked, not challenging, just needing to understand. Caleb took a slow breath. Because I almost signed a document that would have punished my company for things we could not control, he said. And because the only person in the room who saw it coming was someone this place trained itself to ignore. He glanced at the immaculate table, the skyline, the polished surfaces. I build a company on precision, he continued. But today reminded me that precision without humility is just arrogance wearing a suit. Sarah slid a printed page across the table, crisp and clean. This is the consulting agreement draft, she said. It begins at $35 an hour, part-time, up to 15 hours a week, flexible around school. It includes confidentiality, but it also includes respect. And it is optional. No pressure. Elena stared at the number, and it did not feel real, like seeing a distant star and being told it belonged to you. Monica's hands shook as she reached for her own document, and Sarah spoke gently. This one is yours, she said. Health coverage, dental, paid sick days, and a raise effective next pay period. Monica looked at her name printed in bold, as if she had never seen it treated with importance. Caleb watched them both, then said one more thing, quietly, the way truth often arrives. Your daughter did not just translate, he said to Monica. She protected you, and she protected us. That is what leadership looks like, long before anyone gives it a title. 6 months later, the Whitmore Towers still smelled like lemon polish in the mornings, but the air felt different in the hallways, like someone had opened a window in a place that used to stay sealed. Monica Hayes no longer entered through the service door with her shoulders pulled inward. She wore the same simple uniform, but now there was a supervisor badge clipped near her collar, and when people passed her, they greeted her by name. Not because they suddenly became saints, but because the building had learned that respect could be written into policy the same way profit could be written into contracts. Elena Hayes balanced school and work like a tightrope walker who had finally been given a safety net. 3 afternoons a week, she sat in a small conference room with the international team, translating calls, reviewing drafts, and catching the kinds of cultural nuances that machines and ego never noticed. Her paychecks helped with rent and groceries, but what mattered more was the way her mother slept now, deeper, without jolting awake at night to calculate emergencies that had not even happened yet. The scholarship arrived in a plain envelope, not gilded, not dramatic, just official and real. It covered tuition at a strong university within commuting distance, plus books, plus a stipend so Elena did not have to choose between an exam and a shift. Monica held the letter in both hands like it was fragile, then pressed it to her chest and whispered a prayer that sounded like relief. Caleb Whitmore did not become a different man overnight, but he became a more honest one. He stopped letting convenience masquerade as culture. He made compliance, trainings real instead of performative, and he instituted a contract rule that every bilingual agreement required cross-verification from 2 independent reviewers, not one ambitious executive with a late-night login. He also launched a small internal program called Bridge, designed to identify talent across departments, including the people who cleaned, maintained, and served, because he had finally learned that brilliance does not always wear a blazer. When Travis Cole's misconduct investigation concluded, it did not end in gossip or spectacle. It ended in a quiet press release about leadership changes and strengthened controls, and inside the company, it ended with a clear message. Manipulation would not be rewarded, and scapegoats would not be tolerated. One afternoon, Elena found herself back in the same boardroom, not standing by the wall this time, but seated at the table with a notepad and a glass of water. The skyline looked the same, but she did not. Miss Yumi Nakamura appeared on a video call, and when Elena greeted her in Japanese, Nakamura smiled, a small expression of respect that did not need translation. After the meeting, Caleb walked past the walnut table and paused near the window. I used to think power was the ability to make a room obey, he said quietly, mostly to himself. Now I think power is the ability to make a room fair. Elena looked at the city below, the tiny moving dots of people living ordinary heroic lives, and she understood something she wished she had known earlier. You can be underestimated your whole life and still be right about who you are. Dignity is not a badge someone hands you. It is a posture you refuse to surrender. And sometimes, the moment the world finally hears you is not when you shout, but when you speak with calm precision in a language nobody expected you to know.